art of SQL Server. And last but not least, I'm the host of SQL Hangouts, which are 20 to 30 minute video chats, video conversations with people from the community. So if you want to join me for a SQL Hangout, let me know, just ping me on Twitter, or if you want to know more about me, just go to my blog, borischristov.com, and see it for yourself. Now, I want to start with a quick poll. Mike, can you help me with the poll about the replace? I want to ask you, how many of you have actually, till now, replayed their application workload in one way or another? Or if you have done this whatsoever. Like, I want to know if you have done this till now. Capturing and replaying your application workload. Mike, is the poll going to be online now?
Yeah, it's still in progress here, but it looks like 80% have said no.
Okay. Okay, so I suggest we start and move on. Probably you can give me the context a bit later again, but 80% saying no is a great number because you'll see and learn a lot of interesting stuff, guys, here. So now, 80% haven't done it till now, 20 have done it. Now, for all of you though, why do I have to go and spend my time, waste my time on replaying my workload? Now, why do I have to do this? Because as a data professionals, we don't have time. We're busy guys. Why should you spend your time on this? I have 3 reasons for you. The first one is application compatibility. Now, what I mean by this is, for example, imagine this situation. Imagine that you have to migrate your mission-critical app from SQL Server 2005 to SQL Server 2012, for example, or SQL Server 2014, I don't know. Now, wouldn't it be great if you can simulate your application workload on the new environment and see whether or not your app will actually work there? And wouldn't it be great if you can do this before the change date, before you switch to the new version? Because believe me, I have seen scenarios where we migrate the databases to the new version, and once we migrate them, the app is not working. So that can cause a lot of problems for you and for the business. Believe me, that hurts. So it's very, very interesting if you can do this, and it turns out that you actually do. You actually can. So this is the first reason why you should at least start considering capturing and replaying your workload. Now, the second reason is for performance, or for test of the performance of your app. Now, imagine that you have a performance problem, and everyone has performance problems nowadays, right? So you have a performance problem, and you want to fix it. You want to analyze it. Now, wouldn't it be great if you can capture the code that's causing you the performance problems and replay it on a new environment, on an environment where you, for example, created a new index or added more memory or something like this? Once you do those improvements, you can replay your workload there and check whether or not the problem still exists, right? So wouldn't it be great if you can do this? Again, it turns out that you can do this. And the third thing that you can use, and you should start considering replaying your workload for, is because of forecasting, right? So wouldn't it be great if you are aware what's going to happen with your server if suddenly you have twice as much users? Now that's very, very interesting, and it's very interesting for you to know this. And believe me, there are businesses out there that request this information. So it turns out that you can do this, and I'll show you how later on in this session. Now, what are the tools that we have till now? What can we use, or what have the 20% in the audience already used probably? The first one is my favorite, right? So the mighty Profiler. Everyone have heard Profiler. Everyone have used it, at least for one thing. However, Profiler is a very good tool, especially if you want to replay your workload and debug every single step of the replay process. Profiler is the tool if you want to do this. So if you want to replay your workload and at the same time debug and see what's going on each step, on each event which is replayed, then Profiler is definitely the tool that you have to use. However, if you give to Profiler, let's say 20 or 30 gigs of trace file, you'll face some problems, and I can assure you in this. The second tool that you can use, actually tools that you can use, are the so-called RML utilities. And those utilities are very, very cool. Actually, they have quite a lot of options to play with. However, they are additional downloads, so you should download them from Microsoft support site. And again, they have very, very interesting options to play with. For example, you can do a loop with your workload, which means that you can say, here is my workload, replay it 10 times one after another, and this way create a loop and so stress the server quite a lot. However, once again, as with Profiler, if you give the RML utilities a huge trace file or trace files, you will struggle. It's just the way they have been written. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm not saying that these two tools will not do the work for you. I mean that you have to definitely know what you want to accomplish in first place. If you know what you want to accomplish, probably these tools can help you quite a lot. However, these tools are cool, but you know the words. They're just not cool enough, right? So there is a better option. There is a better option for this, and that's true because there is a new player in the town, and that's a very famous quote, especially in America, I believe. So there is a new player in the town, and its name is distributed replay. And what distributed replay actually is a piece of technology, a feature inside SQL Server that Microsoft introduced with SQL Server 2012. And what's more interesting, by the way, is that Microsoft actually claims that this will be the tool for the future and for us to replay our workloads. So obviously Microsoft are spending some money there, and I'm definitely looking forward to see how they are going to improve it. However, if Microsoft is saying that this will be the tool for the future, we definitely have to know how to use it and what it can do for us. Now, moving on, what's distributed replay? Let's start here. As I told you, distributed replay is a SQL Server 2012 feature. So it was introduced with the SQL Server 2012 release. And it works with all editions, kind of. What this means is that, as you are already familiar, Microsoft wants you to buy the Enterprise Edition if you want to use the full power of the product. That's true, again, when you want to use distributed replay, and you will see what I mean by this, what I mean by saying this in the next slide. However, if you want to use the whole power of distributed replay, you have to have Enterprise Edition of the product. Not a surprise again. And what's more interesting about this technology is that it works, first of all, it doesn't work with SQL Server 2000, so these are great news. And it works with SQL Server 2005. And what this means is that you can capture your application workload if it runs on SQL Server 2005 and replay it on a new version of the product. For example, if you capture it from 2005, the earliest version you can replay it against is SQL Server 2008. However, you are still able, and that's good, you are still able to capture workloads from SQL Server 2005 and above. So that's very, very cool. How is this working? How is this working? I will say that distributed replay is a very, very simple piece of technology. It consists of 4 components, just 4 components. Now, the first one is the so-called administration tool. And I don't know if you see a problem here in this line, which I wrote, but probably if you are seeing a problem, and I'll show it to you right away, if you are seeing a problem, that may be the reason why this tool is not that famous for now. And let me help you a bit. So as you can see, distributed replay doesn't have a GUI. And this reminds me the old days when the extended events were introduced in SQL Server 2008 or R2, when there were no GUI for it and almost no one was using it, right? So this is similar. However, let's go back to the administration tool and what actually the administration tool is. The administration tool is the first component of the distributed replay environment. And what this tool will help you do is it is actually the tool that you as a DBA or as a developer will use to control and create the replay. So this is your tool to work with distributed replay. End of the story. There is no GUI, or at least there is no official GUI. Something I'll show you something later on. But
hey,
this is
Boris.
Yep.
Do you have more than one screen that you're showing? I'm only seeing the presentation piece. Did you pop over to a computer screen at all for a demo yet, or no?
No, not for now. What
Okay.
you have to see at the moment is just my slide deck.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Okay. So going back, the administration tool is the tool that you as a data professional will use to control and to create the replay. The second part of the environment, of the distributed replay environment, is the so-called distributed replay controller. And the controller is nothing more but the brain behind the replay. What this means is that you will use the administration tool to talk and to say to the controller what needs to be done. From there, it's his job to do the replay. So the controller is the brain behind the replay, and it's the thing that will make the replay possible. And when I'm saying the distributed replay controller, I want to refer back to the Enterprise Edition that I was talking to you about. If you want to use the full power of distributed replay, you have to install the distributed replay controller from an enterprise media. Otherwise, you will not be able to have those guys here. The third component, 16 clients. Now, the clients, the distributed replay clients, are actually machines that you can use to replay your workload from. So now that's very different from Profiler or from the RML utilities. You don't have the option to replay your workload from other machines if you are using those two guys. However, if you're using distributed replay, you are able, of course, again, if you have installed the controller from an enterprise media, you can install up to 16 clients to replay your workload from. And that's very, very, very interesting. Of course, actually it's not of course, but if you install the controller from a non-enterprise media, guess what? You'll be limited to just one client to replay from. And that hurts, but it's what it is. So that's the third component. And the fourth component is actually your target SQL server, the server that you are going to use to replay your workload. Hopefully, this will not be your production instance. Please, guys, don't replay your application workloads against the prod instance. Please, please, please. So these are the four components that we have to have in order to use distributed replay. And this is a quick diagram on how are these guys actually working together. So if you can see this, you as a DBA, again, you are using the administration tool to talk with the controller. The controller from there talks with the clients, and it is actually the clients that are replaying your workload. However, there is an interesting part here, because if you are during a replay process, all of the clients are not just replaying the events against the target instance, they're also chatting and talking with the controller in the same time, because the controller is the thing that will say to them what they have to do next, how they should do it, etc. Now, let's jump up to the first demo. And in this first demo, I want to show you how you can set distributed replay environment. Now, why do I want to show you this? This is very strange, but it's very true. If you, most of us have seen someone installing SQL Server by just clicking next, 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 next on the installation in the installation media. And the end result is that if you just do this, the components will work one way or another. This is not the case with distributed replay. If you just click next, next, your distributed replay environment will not work. And I'll show you where the problems are. So Mike, I'm now shifting to my environment. Now let's first go here. Can you see a blue screen of Windows SQL Server, of Windows Server?
Yeah, it's coming up now.
Okay.
Yeah, I see a blue screen.
Okay, so my environment is this. I have 3 virtual machines. In order for me to set up distributed replay, the first thing that I have to say and to create are domain accounts for the services, for the domain controller service and for the domain, not the domain controller, the distributed replay controller and for the distributed replay clients. So I have already done this. I don't want to waste time here. I have created 2 accounts. As you can see here, distributed replay client and DR controller. I don't want to spend time here. These are just a simple domain users, nothing else. What else do I have on this machine? If I go to the services and I go to the SQL Server services, take a look at what I have already set up here. I have a SQL Server distributed replay client already running here on this machine. So I have already installed one of them. Now we are going to go and install one more, and I will show you the steps. Now this is my first machine, SQL AD, that's the name of the machine. Let's go to the second machine that I have prepared for you. Let me go here, let me go to the SQL DC. Let me just go to the virtual machine library, sorry for that. So this is the SQL DC machine. This is the second virtual machine that we are going to use. The whole idea here is that we want to install one more client. So I want 2 clients that I want to replay my workload from. However, what I want to first show you is how you can set up the controller. I have already done this on my third machine, but let me show you what are the problems if you are going to set up a controller. So let's click here and select the controller. I will go and click next. Mike, just a quick check. Is everything okay with the demo? Can you see clearly?
Yes. Yep.
Great. So let's try to install a controller. I will go to the rules. I'll say next. I will not install it. I just want to show you the steps. So I will say demo DR controller. This is the account that I have created. And I'll say this is my password. I'll say it manual. This is where the first problem will arise. Most of the users, most of us click on the add current user here. And that's a problem because it will not work this way. What this window is asking you is who is going to be connecting to the controller service. And this is not you. This is the client and not you, which means that you have to specify the account that you are going to use for the client service. So this is the first problem that many of us will have if they try to just click next, 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 next in the environment. So remember this. In this window, you have to specify the account that you are going to use for the client. Now let's go back and install a client. So I will unselect this, mark this, and go ahead. Let me show you how you should install the client, because again, there is a problem that you may face once you install the component. So I'll click just next. I'll specify my account for the client, client, and I'll specify my password here. I'll set automatic. I'll click next. Here is the second problem that you may face. Many of us will say and will specify the FQDN of the server where the controller is, which means the full qualified domain name. For example, sqldc.demo.com. And from my experience and from the experience of the people that have tested this technology, this is not a good idea because sometimes you will face some connectivity problems that are, believe me, unexplainable. So what I suggest you do here is just put the host name where the controller actually is going to be installed. And my controller is located on this machine, SQL Server. And I'll show you the machine right now. So I will specify the controller name by just putting the host name here. I will not change those directories. We don't have time, and they're actually not that important. So we'll skip this and move ahead. Move on. Let's go and click next. We are okay. Install. In the meantime, I'll show you my third machine, the SQL Server machine actually. Let me go ahead and switch there. So this is the third machine. This is where, if I click on the services, you will see that I have SQL Server Distributed Reply Controller already installed here. I don't want to waste time and we don't have it, so that's why I installed it here, as you saw in my demonstration just a minute ago. What else I have here, however, is a SQL Server installation, right? So I have the fourth component, the target SQL Server, also installed here. So imagine that this is my test instance. This is what it is. This is the instance that we are going to replay our workload against. So this is the fourth component. Now, let me go back to the DC and check whether or not we have already installed. It will take just a few seconds more. I'm running on SSD, so it's fast. And let me show you where the other problem may arise. So far you saw that we should specify the client name in the controller installation and the host name in the client installation. Now, if I'm okay with the client, it installed successfully. I'll close this. And in order for you to be sure that the client have actually installed successfully, you should go to a directory. Let me show you where. If you go to the C program files x86, then to Microsoft SQL Server, then you go to 110 because it's SQL Server 2012. You go to the tools and you go to the distributed replay client folder. You will see a folder that's named log. And what I want to see here, let me open it, is this thing here. This means registered with the controller and the name of the controller. This means that we have a working client. If that's not the case, if my client is not working, what you are actually going to see is, let me show it to you, because I want you to know this. What you are going to see is, if I go to the same folder, you are going to see this thing. Let me zoom it out. Failed to connect the controller. This is what you are going to see if you have some connectivity problems. Now, why? What are the chances that you will face this, and how can you fix this if it arises? If we go to our machine where the controller lives, one of the things that you have to do after you installed the controller and the client is to give a very, very interesting permission. And this permission is a DCOM permission. Microsoft have decided, for I don't know what reason, to use their old technology, DCOM, which is used for communication for the distributed replay. And let me show you, if I open the component services and go to the computers folder here, to my computer, to decom config and list those guys this way. I'll expand this and I will go, my error. If we go to D, you will see something that's very familiar, the replay controller. And here is where you have to specify the last permissions that you need to have in order for you to make the distributed replay environment connect successfully and work successfully. If we go and click Properties and go to the Security, you have to grant permissions for the clients here on the Launch and Activate permissions and to the Access permissions, which means that you have to click Edit, add the client, and give him all the rights here possible. I have done this already, as you can see, and I have done this not only here, but on the second tab also. This is what you also have to do in order for you to make distributed replay actually working. So this is quite a complicated process. It's great that you have it on the web. It is very well documented and you can find some blog articles about it, but these are the steps that you have to go through in order for you to make the distributed replay working. And one more thing actually, don't fasten that much. Once you create all of this and once you have all of the clients connecting successfully, you have to do one more thing. You have to create a login for your client inside SQL Server, because remember, it is the client or the clients that are actually going to replay your workload. So they definitely have to have permissions against the database that you are going to replay your application workload. So this is the final step. I promise you that's the final step. Now let's go back to the slides and talk about a bit more about what needs to be done in order to replay the workload.
Hey, Boris?
Yep.
Do you want questions as they come up, or do you want me to hold them to the end? I forgot to ask you before we started.
Let's hold them till the end. I hope that that's not going to be a problem for our attendees. Let's hold them till the end.
Okay. All right.
Okay, great. Now, that was the first demo. You are now aware how you can set this environment up. You saw that there are some gotchas. Let's go through the process again. The first thing that you have to create is domain accounts, or domain account if you're going to use just one for both the controller and the client. I'll suggest you create at least two. This is the first thing. Distributed replay will work only with domain accounts. The second thing is that something that we didn't talk a lot about, but you have to allow the traffic for between the machines with your firewall. And in my environment, I just switched off my firewalls, but in the materials that I'm going to give you together with the presentation, you will find a quick bat file that you can run, and it will make all the needed steps for the distributed replay components to be enabled, and not to be enabled, but to be allowed again in your firewall. So that's not the problem. The third thing that you have to do is the decom permissions. Very strange, but needed. You have to do this. You saw where you need to go in the component services. And the fourth step is that you have to create the SQL Server login or logins for the clients. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to replay the workload against the SQL Server. Once we know that, how do we issue a replay? We have the environment set up. How do we issue the replay? The first step is to capture a trace, which means that you have to capture your application workload. How we can do this? We should use Profiler for now. And the easiest way for you to capture your application workload is to use a predefined template inside Profiler. The predefined template is called tsql_replay. This template has all the needed events that you have to capture in order for distributed replay to be able to replay those events later on. So use this. Don't create your own templates. Just use the one that's already there. Don't spend time on things that are already created for you. So the first step, we're capturing our application workload. The second step is the so-called pre-processing stage. And what pre-processing means is that you have to give to the distributed replay controller the trace file or the trace file that you captured with your application workload. What the controller will do is to pre-process those trace files and create two new files from them that are called intermediate files. Those files are actually later on during the replay process going to be dispatched or sent to the clients. And what those files actually are the events that needs to be replayed. Now, the cool part here, what I want to make clear for you is that distributed replay will not, how can I say it? Distributed replay will replay your workload by distributing it, which means that it will divide the workload across the clients. It will not multiply it. And we will see that there are two options how the controller will decide which events are going where. You have two options. The first one is the connection option, which means that if I have two connections from my application, and if I have two clients from which I will replay, it will say, oh, I have two clients and two connections. I will send the events from the one connection to the first client and the events from the second connection on the second client. So this is what I mean by distributing it. It will split it up equally across the clients. So in this stage, you are creating those intermediate files that are going to be used for the replay. Those are actually the commands that needs to be replayed. The third step, and here is how it actually looks, is very scary, so we'll skip it. And the third step is decide what replay you want to do exactly. So you have the option sequencing mode here, and you have two options here. One of them is synchronization, which means that you will replay your application workload as it was captured. Distributed replay will follow the event sequence IDs and will replay your workload exactly as it was. The other option, however, is more interesting, and it's called stress. I believe many of you already are guessing what this means, but let me give you a bit more insight about this. It's not only that you can hit your server as bad as you want. It's also for the two options below the sequencing mode, which are named connection timescale and think timescale. I want you to imagine a situation where you start to capture application workload at 2 a.m. in the evening. The first user logs in 2:30 and the second in, let's say, 2:40. Now, when I start replaying my application workload, I will wait 30 minutes doing nothing, right? Because there was no user connected to my environment. What I can do with connect timescale is reduce this time. So I can remove this 30 minutes of nothing. What I will accomplish this way is very interesting though. What I will accomplish is that I will simulate the activities of those two users as they were logged in together. So this is where distributed replay really starts to stand up and starts to be very, very cool, because you can remove this time and replay your workload as you had two users connected at the same time. And this is not possible with any other tool. And the second interesting option is the think timescale, which you again can reduce, but this option is doing something else. Imagine that you are hitting your server with, for example, a query, then you wait 10 minutes and then you start another query. And the other user is doing the same. However, why should I wait 10 minutes between those events? This option, think timescale, will help you remove the time that you are waiting between the events and doing nothing. And now imagine what's going on. You not only simulated the users as they just logged in together, but you have removed the time that they wait between their events, between their transactions are replayed. So this is what it means to really stress out the server, and you'll see this in the second demo definitely. There are a lot more options which you can play with, but we don't have the time to talk about them. However, we'll use the last one, stress scale granularity, in our demo. And this is what I was talking about to you about the speed, whether or not I will scale, whether or not I will distribute my workload based on my sessions or based on my connections. The second option that you can specify there is connection. And the last step during a replay is the fourth step, the replay itself. So once you've chosen what options you want to use for the replay, you issue the replay. What happens is that the intermediate files that you have created and were generated actually for you in the intermediate, in the pre-processing stage, are now sent to each of the clients. And the clients start to replay your application workload against the target instance. But at the same time, as I told you at the beginning, you are also, the clients are also constantly talking with the controller, because the controller will tell them what needs to be replayed, when, and how. You also have the option to generate an output file on each of the clients with the results of the replay. And this is very, very interesting, because you can generate those files and, for example, replay your workload once, see how one of your problematic events is executing. For example, it takes 1 second. Then you can add an index that you think that it will improve your query, replay your workload again, and then again check the output file, and you can now see that, for example, your transaction, your query was executed for 10 milliseconds. So this is a very basic way how you can actually analyze the output of the file. Now, I want to suggest you to go to the next and more interesting demo, where we are going to replay some workloads. Definitely more interesting than slides. Let's go to the demo. We will use the SQL Server environment only. I'll close this. Now, the first part of the demo, I want to show you the whole process. So I want to show you how you can capture the application workload and then replay it. So the first thing that we are going to do is fire up Profiler. Then we are going to connect to our target instance, where we are going to replay, where we are going to actually capture the workload from. And in my case, my production instance and my test instance is actually the same. So I'll connect here, and on the template, I will choose the one that I told you about, T-SQL replay. As you can see, it has already pre-selected all the events that are needed, so I'll not do anything else for now. I'll leave it this way, and now I will fire up Management Studio, because I want to fire up an application workload. So I'll connect here, and I'll open a script that will generate some workload against AdventureWorks database, which is a free download. You can download it from CodeFlex. Now I'll fire up the event. I'll save the trace to a file, which will be stored on C, demo 1, replay not processed. It's easier for me to work this way. And I'll run this. And then I'll go here and just click execute. This way, I want to simulate a quick, and I just want to simulate some workload. And what's going on in the meantime and behind the scenes is that we're actually capturing those events. And later on, we are going to use those events to replay them with distributed replay. Now, this script will take around 48-50 seconds. And in the meantime, I want to tell you about an improvement and something that I strongly recommend. I'm sure that you have heard it, but I want to repeat it. Do not use the graphical user interface with Profiler to create and to capture your workload. Script the trace and run it as a server-side trace. This is the correct way for you to do this. Otherwise, you can crash the server. Don't ask me for real-world examples. Now, this event, so my application workload completed. Okay, we have the workload captured. I'll close Management Studio. I have the workload already captured here. I'll stop the event tracing. I'll close the profiler, and now what I have to do is to go to the command line. Be ready for that. I'll open command line, and what I want to do is first pre-process those events. So I'll go to my ready script, and I'll show you the command that we're going to run. dreplay pre-process -m SQL server, which means tell me which is the controller name, because we are going to use it, -i where the trace file is, the input trace file is, -d where the destination is, where I want those intermediate files to be, and -f 20 means, sorry guys, means give me a status update. What are you doing each 20 seconds? So these commands are very well documented in MSDN. You should not learn them. You just go there and learn and see and check them. So let me hit this up, and by using this, we are actually going to pre-process our events, our application workload. And as you can see, it's done. That's quick because we have less events, etc. But as you can see, pre-processing is already completed, and 500 events were created to an intermediate file. Now we have the intermediate files, which means that we can fire up the replay, right? So let me fire up a replay. How I do this? dreplay replay -s is the target SQL Server instance. As you saw already, my instance is a default instance, so it's with the host name. -w is the interesting part. Here you specify which are the clients that you are going to use to replay your workload from. So my first client is located on SQL DC1, the machine that we installed the client in the first demo, and SQL AD is the second client. -f20 again, give me output on what are you doing on each 20 seconds, and -d is where the intermediate files are. So this is what we have to run now. Let's run it and see what's going to happen, because that's very interesting. Let's go. Now, if we wait a bit, what's going on at the moment is that failed to start the replay, refer to the client and controller log files with the controller. That's a problem that's happening for first time ever. Let me just double check that. Give me just a second. I want to see why this happens. That's not planned. Let's call it this way. Failed to start the replay. Refer to the client and controller log files for more options. Let me do a quick restart of the. That's not something that I expected. Give me just a quick moment to restart all of those components. First time failing. I have a video recording actually of this. I can. There is a problem with one of my clients, obviously. Let me go there. SQL DC. Why is SQL DC not showing up? Mike, if there is a question, now it's the moment. Give me the questions while I'm trying to fix this.
Okay. Let me scroll back here. So, okay. Well, I'm doing a profiler, SQL profiler poll right now, but the question is do you know what they plan on doing in the future? Because profiler has already been slated to go away.
Yes.
How are they going to capture at that point?
So what we are all hearing till now is that I cannot confirm you this thing, right? Because I don't have internal information. What many people are already hearing is that this tool will actually work with extended events. So this is the question, and this is my this is what I believe will happen in the upcoming future. Because as you said, we're going to see the profiler deprecated. So obviously something will happen, and I believe this will be using. We're going to start using the extended events. That's something that I believe will will happen, won't it or not? The other question.
Yeah, so when you were talking about on the setup screen where you're saying don't click on the add current user.
Yes.
So how will people recover if they did click on that, they get out and they try and configure this and it's not working? How can they go back and add the proper user?
That's a great question. Let me, because we don't have the time to cover it, save this question. I will blog post it. There is a way, so you are not lost. But there is a way, and I'll show you the steps in my blog post that I will refer to later on. Is this okay? Because we don't have the time.
Yeah, absolutely right. Not a problem.
Okay. In the meantime, Mike. Obviously, the controllers and the clients were not connected for some reason. As you can see, can you see my screen at the moment?
I cannot.
Can you show my screen now?
I see it now, yes.
Okay, guys, sorry for the problem. Obviously, we had some problems with my clients. They were not connected successfully to the controller. I now just started the replay, and as you can see, the replay is now going. So if you take a look at what's going on, dispatching of the intermediate files has completed, so the files are now on the clients. And as you can also see, SQL DC has replayed 300 events, and the other one has replayed just one. And as you can see now, the replay has completed. Now, my question to you is, can you guess why one of the events have replayed so many events and the other almost none? And if you have the answer, just think a bit for now. I'll go in the meantime and I want to show you what we have as an output files. However, let me see whether or not I specify the -o parameter. Actually, I have an output files. Let me go here. Let me go here. And if I go to the result directory of the client here, and I go to the result directory, I have a trace file actually. And if we open it, and I don't want to lose a lot of time here, you can see what the client have actually done. You can see the duration and everything. You can see the sessions, etc. So this is the first and most basic way you can analyze the replay. Now I want to show you a more complex replay, and because we don't have that much time because of me, so sorry for that, I want to go back to the SQL Server environment here. Now, for those of you who cannot guess why do we have just one event replayed from one of the clients and many from the other, remember that I started a workload from just one session. And what it did is it says, how many sessions do I have here in this trace file? One. So I will not divide, the controller cannot divide one session to a smaller pieces of sessions and distribute it this way. And this is true because of, let me show you the options and move on. Because of, if we go to Notepad and run it as an administrator and go here to this directory, SQL Server 110 tools bin, there is a text file here that said distributed replay, exe replay. And here is the thing that you saw on the slide, and it says spit, which means that I will distribute my workload per spit. And because I have just one spit, I will distribute this replay, I will distribute this workload file to the first client, and I will offload this client from anything else. And that's why all of the system session events, and as you can see, we have how many? 61 events were replayed from the other control client, and those were actually system events that happened. But as you can see, the controller is actually a bit of clever, and it knows how to distribute your environment, your workload. Now let's jump to the more interesting demo. What I first want to show you is that I have already pre-processed an event, workload. However, this time we have two connections, so we will play with this file. However, the first thing that I want to to make here is to specify that the memory will be limited to 128 megabytes, and then I will open again this controller file, and I will change some of the options which we talked about. For example, I will not use the synchronization replay, I will use the stress mode. And I will also specify that I don't want to distribute the workload by the speed, but by the connection, because I have two connections in my replay that's already pre-processed. The first thing that I want to show you is I'll fire up perfmon. And this is another way you can analyze your workload. Let me just have a perfmon, and I'll add the page life expectancy counter here, because I want to monitor what's going on with my memory and how long a page is inside the buffer pool. I will do that. I will mark this thing as blue because I want you to see it better. I will clear it and I'll pause it. Now, I'm ready for the replay. Demo 2, I have prepared my script, so I'll copy it, and then I will fire it up. So let's go. I'll start this thing. And this is just a simple way you can analyze your replay. Now, what I want you to focus on is this counter here, the page life expectancy. As you can see, the replay haven't started yet. But again, this is a more hardcore application workload, let's call it this way. And if that's true, if what I'm talking about is true, we will see a sudden drop of the page life expectancy once the replay starts. And if we wait just a bit more, here it is. And that's because, as you saw, I limited the memory of the SQL Server to 128 megabytes. So this means that for this workload, and if that's your application workload, we don't have enough memory, right? That's what it means. That's what it means. And as you can see, the replay is now in progress. We have 32% of the replay already completed. And as you can see, the performance is bad. Our page life expectancy is bad. What we are going to do once the replay finishes is that we are going to then extend the memory of SQL Server and replay the event again, the workload again, because this way you can simulate something like, oh, I have a performance problem. What will happen if this workload actually runs on twice as much memory, for example, or 5 times as much memory? And we are going to analyze the results then. And as you will see after a moment, Mike, by the way, a quick question, can we have 5 more minutes?
Yes, not a problem.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So if we wait for this event to complete, and as for this workload to complete, 97% already done, I believe. So that's it, it completed. Let's go to the perfmon. Here it is. Take a look at the page life expectancy. It's very low. Let's pause it, let's clear it, and let's extend the memory of SQL Server now to, let's say, go back to 120 to 2 gigs. And because I want to start from the ground up, I'll just reboot the instance. I don't want to write scripts, DBCCs, and etc. Don't do this in production, you know it. So here it is. My environment is now back up and running. I'll fire this replay again, and I will again start the performance counters. Now, if the replay, while the replay is running, we will see that once the replay starts, we are not going to probably see drop in the performance counters and specifically to the page life expectancy, which means that for my application workload, 2 gigs is okay. And this is just a simple way for you to analyze it and trace what's going on with your replay. Depending on your case study, depending on the monitoring tools that you use, it can be different. You can use different tools to monitor. You can use, for example, other workloads. etc., etc. But as you can see, we don't see a drop now, right? There is no drop. So the replay is already completed and there was no drop. So 2 gigs of memory obviously will face and will fix my performance problem. That was the point of this replay. And the last replay I want to show you, and which we will end up with, is what's going to happen if I remove the connection time scale value to set it to 1 and the think time scale. And so I will simulate the 2 connections starting together, and the events they issue are not going to wait between the completion of the first one and the start of the next. So let's take a look at what the difference will be, because there will be a difference. Let me show you. Let's fire the replay and let's start the performance monitor, because I want to show you, first of all, I want to show you the performance metrics, and then I want to show you the execution time. So now take a look at what's going to happen with the processor once the event starts processing. 0 events have been dispatched. 0 events till now. So it's dispatching the events at the moment. Let's focus on the perfmon, because I believe there will be more interesting thing that we are going to see here. So the event is now the replay is now starts. Did I save this? Yep. So take a look at the processor. Take a look at the processor, let's say usage. Let's call it this way. And if we see the estimated time, take a look at first how much more the processor counter goes up. So this means that done. The replay was actually already completed. So if we let me double check the options. Stress. Did I save it? I believe I saved it. Let me just replay it again, but I believe that was successful. If we replay the workload this way, you can see that the workload is quite more hammering our environment, quite more, which means that this way you know now what's going to happen if 2 users connect together, and not if those 2 users have actually for example, started their work in, for example, 30 minutes difference. Let me just wait a bit more. What I wanted to show you is this one. This is the case. I obviously haven't saved it. Take a look at the execution time. 21 seconds from 51, and take a look at the CPU. This is what I meant. This is when we definitely have those values lowered. This is the difference in the execution. This is how harder you hit the processor and how hard your application workload will be if you have those users connected together. So this ends our demos. I'll switch again to the slide deck and finish up, because we are obviously late. Now, can you see my screen, Mike?
Yes.
Great. Last things for you guys. In order for us to replay a workload, the first thing that we have to do is to capture the workload by using the profiler predefined template T-SQL replay. Don't waste time creating your template. The second thing is that you have to pre-process the trace or the trace files. This way, creating those intermediate files which are going to be used by the clients. The third thing is to decide what replay you want, and this is where distributed replay really stands out, because there are quite a lot of options that you can play with. The fourth step, issue the replay itself, like hit the dReplay command. And the fifth, and not necessary, but I believe very, very helpful, is analyze the results. And depending on your environment, you analyze your results with whatever tools you have. I just showed you the output file, and I showed you also the perfmon counters. Now, I promised to show you a GUI for the distributed replay environment. I would definitely not recommend you use this, because this tool is in beta from 2011. It was made by our colleagues from SolidQ, but as you saw, there are just 2 commands that you have to know. So I don't know why you have to have a GUI for this. And again, I definitely don't recommend you compile and deploy this application to your servers. This is just my opinion. At the end, this is to sum it up. At the end, distributed replay, again, this will be the tool for replaying our workloads in the upcoming future. Microsoft says that. So if Microsoft is saying that, it's probably true. And distributed replay is quite a powerful tool. You can do a lot of interesting stuff with it. And what's more interesting, you can give distributed replay 20 or 30 gigs of trace file, and it will replay without any problems. And the last thing, don't be afraid of the fact that there is no GUI. Don't be afraid of it. It's just two commands that you have to learn about. Capture, preprocess, replay, you know this. And finally, document this, blog it, share it with the community, because Microsoft had done not that good job documenting this tool. And I believe there is a lot more that needs to be covered. These are the resources that you can use. And because we don't have time, I hope that this session was helpful to you. I definitely want to know that you are now aware that there is a way for you to plan your migrations to a new version, that there is a way for you to troubleshoot performance problems to a new server, and that you can do some things in order to forecast what's going to happen if twice as much users are actually hitting your application workload. I definitely hope that you learned a bit about this. Thank you very much, guys. And sorry for the late. Sorry for being late. Mike, up to you again. Back to you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Boris. All I can say on this is wow. We were playing with the DRU itself to try and get up running at our site. We happen to have a contract going with Microsoft at the time, had an MCM here. And it took them 3 days to get it up and running to figure this out. It was the first time they've used it. It's so new and not many people have used it. So, Boris, I have to say, after going through all this stuff on our own in my group here, that was a very good presentation. So, folks, if you want to know how to do it, this is great. It's a great presentation. Yeah. The gotchas are real.
Mike, if you think that we have time for questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, just send them to me.
Yeah, so I was just wanted to give you props for that and wanted to thank everyone for coming today. We will get to the questions here, so they'll be on the recording as best we can have that. But I also wanted to announce that we do give out a door prize for folks that pre-register for the event. And today's winner is Mark Harrison. So Mark, congratulations. I saw you online. We'll be sending you your gift certificate in the mail here, email here today. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. If you want to hang around for some of the questions and answers, so it's recorded on, so it's captured on the recording, feel free to. And so, Boris, if you have a few minutes, we can go through a couple of the questions here.
Yes, please, let's go.
Okay. All right. So one of the questions is, can you install the DR client and controller on the same machine and instance?
The answer is yes, you can. And actually, if you do that, it's not necessary for you to use domain accounts. So that limitation is not something that you should worry about if you install all of them on the same machine. But yes, you can.
That's interesting because you answered the very next question. If they're on the same machine, you need an AD account, so that's great.
No.
Yep. So when you set up the user for the SQL user for the client account, what permissions does it need on the database?
That's a very interesting question. I'll tell you why, and it's a very good question, by the way, because of the audits and every single thing that we do as a data professionals to keep our data secure. If you go to the Microsoft website and if you go to MSDN, Microsoft will recommend you to configure and to set the permissions of the distributed replay client. Guess to what? Sysadmin. However, I tested this and it's not needed. Actually, if we go back to my environment, you are going to see that the distributed replay client does not have sysadmin permissions, I believe. Oh, I have mapped it back. But if you go back and try to replay your workload with just a permission to the database that you are actually going to replay against, you are fine. You're fine. So you have to have permissions against the database that you're going to replay your workload to. So no problems there. You don't have to be a sysadmin. Don't trust the guys from MSDN.
That's
yeah.
always good.
Yeah.
I think you'd answered this, but I wanted to kind of just ask the question again. Can you use the T-SQL replay template against the 2005 instance?
Meaning
for the profiler capture? As you're doing the initial...
Meaning for the capturing the workload?
Yes.
You should be able to, yes.
Yeah.
Frankly, and I haven't tested it with SQL Server 2005, but definitely you should be able to, yes.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, as you can see, I just removed the sysadmin permissions and the replay went okay. So don't trust the guys from MSDN.
Right, so when you removed the sysadmin privileges, it looked like the account still had owner privileges, so it's still pretty high.
Yes, I haven't limited it to, for example, reader or writer, but yes, but if you think about it, you have to, in order for you to replay the workload, because I have not only selects in this workload, I have inserts and updates also, you should know what's, you have to know what the application workload actually is, right? Because if you just grant, for example, data reader privileges to this account, and if you have inserts and updates going on, guess what? Your application workload will not be replayed correctly, right? So you have to know the workload, and based on that, you should grant the permissions that you need.
Okay. Well, Boris, once again, I want to thank you for your time. I will send you the questions, those ones about how to go back and reconfigure accounts. I think that's good for you to have and document.
Yes, yes, definitely send it to me.
Yeah, and this recording and so forth will be available at the dba.sqlpass.org website for viewing at your leisure. Thank you once again, Boris. Awesome presentation.
Thank you, guys. And again, sorry for that problem with the controller.
Yeah. So, Boris, way to handle that that demo glitch. I was able to throw up a poll that Sharon had created earlier, so it gave the attendants some guys something to do as well. So that was good. Good recovery. Great. So it was really great. So. It was a really good presentation. It's pretty painful for us to get ours up and running.
Do you think that this was helpful, like really helpful?
I think so. I think people may hear about a new feature, and sometimes because of the security thing, the configuration is the hard part. Capturing the workload and replaying it. Once you have all the plumbing working, it's a great product. But until you get that going, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation, Boris.
Well, thank you, Sharon. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was very useful.
Yeah, and your delivery was very good. So I had to commend you on both. The content and the delivery was pretty awesome. So
great. So you will have me again.
You send me a topic, Boris. Send me a topic.
Okay, thank you very much, guys, and thank you for helping me with the logistics of organizing the event and everything. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Mike, are you recording?
I did record, yes. When you start the broadcast, it actually prompts you to say, do you want to start the recording? And I said yes and verified it said recording at the top. So,
okay. Well, then you stop the recording because I started because I couldn't see whether you were doing it. And don't forget the questions log, file, save questions log.
That's interesting because that's why I was typing those questions because my little start recording button was still showing available. So
yeah, so was mine.
That if he was recording, I would think that we shouldn't see that, but
I would think so too. I saw your
But
note
it,
there towards the
it
end.
doesn't seem to work that way. It seems to, because the same thing happened, Julie. You had started the recording, and I thought you hadn't, so I started it.
Yeah, I think it's giving everyone who's a panelist the opportunity to record.
Yeah, that must be.
I believe
So
you
I'm here-
recorded it.
Yeah. So I'm here. Yeah, it got recorded. Because it records it on a local machine, so we have 3 copies of it. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm here now on the recording session.
Well, first
On the
first
settings.
go to the file and save the questions log
Where do I go file?
in the
Way
control
up
panel.
in the control panel.
Sharon, Mike, just a quick one. Do you need me for this one?
No, you
Nope.
can go. You're free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a
one
good
last,
evening.
Thank you very
Enjoy your
much.
night.
One last thing. Just please send me the questions, and please send me. I definitely want to see the feedback of the guys that attended. Please.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much again. I need to go and do some other stuff now.
Okay.
All right.
Mike,
Thank you,
you
boys.
need
Appreciate it.
Mike,
Thank you,
need to
and
get
see-
to the control panel.
Okay.
I'm on the
Okay.
control panel.
File.
Well, so this is where I'm a Mac guy now. I don't have a file. Oh, here we
The
go.
control panel should have a file.
At the very top.
Yeah. No, it's the Mac side. So I'm there. So file,
Save questions log.
Questions.
I see chat log. Save.
It
I
should
see
be right
save
under.
chat log.
It should be right under save chat log.
I know. I agree. It'd probably be great. It's not there.
All right, I'll do it.
Yeah, I don't have that option.
I've got it.
Edit. Okay.
It says edit your name and email, save chat log, save questions log.
Yeah.
Right. So mine stops at chat log. I don't
Okay.
have the option to save.
Well,
Weird.
So that's a
well,
bummer.
I'll
Yeah.
send them to Boris. You stop the
Okay.
recording.
Yeah, that was stopped earlier.
Okay.
Good. So our chit chat's not
so-
recorded.
No. Yeah.
And then file.
So how do I save the recording?
It's already saved if you've stopped it. And when
Okay,
you
good.
leave the webinar, it will start converting it.
Okay.
Now,
All right,
on your
that's-
control panel menu, do you have an exit end webinar choice?
I have leave webinar and end webinar.
End webinar is what you want.
Okay, when I do that, we won't be able to talk anymore. So
We'll
are
be
we all
done.
set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right.
Let us know when you post the recording. The last time we had some problems and I had to do some conversions.
Okay. So you guys will have your own recordings too. You might want to save them just in case, because today, again, it's the Mac, so we'll see. Okay.